After a long time you shall be summoned. In the distant future you shall march against the land, restored from the sword, gathered from the midst of many peoples, against the mountains of Israel, which have long lain desolate, liberated from the nations, and now all dwelling secure. You shall advance, coming like a storm. You shall be like a cloud covering the earth, you and all your cohorts, and the many peoples with you. Thus saith the sovereign power, on that day a thought will occur to you, and you will conceive a wicked design. You will say, I will invade a land of open towns. I will fall upon a tranquil people living secure, all of them living in unwalled towns and lacking bars and gates, in order to take spoil and seize plunder, to turn your hand against repopulated waste and against a people gathered from among nations, acquiring livestock and possessions, living at the center of the earth. Sheba and Dedan and the merchants and all the magnates of Tarshish will say to you, have you come to take spoil? Is it to seize plunder that you assembled your hordes, to carry off silver and gold, to make off with livestock and goods, to gather an immense booty? Therefore prophesy, O mortal, and say to Gog, thus saith the sovereign power, surely on that day, when my people Israel are living secure, you will take note, and you will come from your home in the farthest north, you and many peoples with you, all of them mounted on horses, a vast horde, a mighty army, and you will advance upon my people Israel, like a cloud covering the earth. This shall happen on that distant day. I will bring you to my land, and the nations may know me when, before their eyes, I manifest my holiness through you, O Gog. Thus saith the sovereign power, why, you are the one I spoke of in ancient days through my servants, the prophets of Israel, who prophesied for years in those days that I would bring you against them. On that day, when Gog sets foot on the soil of Israel, declares the sovereign power, the most highest of hosts, my raging anger shall flare up, for I have decreed in my indignation and in my blazing wrath, on that day a terrible earthquake shall befall the land of Israel. The fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the beasts of the field, all creeping things that move on the ground, and every human being on earth shall quake before me. Mountains shall be overthrown, cliffs shall topple, and every wall shall crumble to the ground. I will then summon the sword against him throughout my mountains, declares the sovereign power, and every man's sword shall be turned against his kin. I will punish him in pestilence and with bloodshed, and I will pour torrential rain, hailstones, and sulphurous fire upon him and his hordes and the many peoples with him. Thus will I manifest my greatness and my holiness, and make myself known in the sight of many nations, and they shall know that I am. You know how we do. We right back to it. Episode number 42 for a chosen. We're talking section 107 of the Copyright Act. Criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Simple as that. We back. Are you the dragons found here in the Americas? Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. Are you the dragons found in the Americas? You are now tapped in with Dragon Canoe. We are steadily rowing, and we are constantly flowing. All praise to the Most High. Khan, to officiate as a priest, to put on regalia. to execute the minister of the priest's office, Kohan, Khan, officiating a priest and acting priest, a chief or ruler, priest, prince, principal officer, Kohan, chief or ruler. We're talking Americans, copper-colored cons found here in America. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. We're talking El Tratado and the Treaty of Tordesillas in Spain was the site of the signing of the most stunning treaty in human history, the Treaty of Tordesillas. On June 7, 1494, Spanish and Portuguese diplomats agreed on a partition of the world. Spanish and Portuguese diplomats agreed on a partition of the world, a dividing of the world. Let that sink in. The Treaty of Tordesillas accorded them another 270 leagues, or about 1,350 kilometers, that is more or less up to 46 degrees west. Brazil would be Portuguese, while the rest of the Americas would theoretically fall under Spanish authority. The museum in Tordesillas devoted to this treaty, Casas del Tratado, comprises 2 contiguous houses, and the Cantino map is used to illustrate the meridians proposed in 1493 and 1494. We're talking Cantino map. The Cantino planisphere is one of the most precious cartographic documents of all time. One of the most precious cartographic documents of all time, the Cantino planisphere. They portioned it out between Portugal and Spain. One of the most precious cartographic documents of all time. It depicts the world as it became known to the Europeans after the great exploration voyages at the end of the 15th, beginning of the 16th century to the Americas, Africa, and India. Again, from this orientation, it's just a little bit of what we know to be America today on this Cantino planisphere. But don't you worry, we will get into it. Here's another one. Again, what we would know to be America, it looks like half of it is missing. Is it under the water? Is it because it hasn't been discovered yet? From what it seems, this is the only portion of the map with maybe Australia that is pretty much just nowhere to be found. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments, man. Is it underwater? Is it missing? Is it connected to something else? Let me know. One thing that greatly puzzled me when writing 1421 was the lack of curiosity among many professional historians. Christopher Columbus supposedly discovered America in 1492. Indeed, even before his first voyage, Columbus signed a contract with the King and Queen of Spain that appointed him Viceroy of the Americas. His fellow ship's captain, Martin Alonso Pinzon, who sailed with him in 1492, had too seen a map of the Americas in the Pope's library. So Columbus and Pinzon signed a contract with the King and Queen of Spain that we know. Having said that, Columbus and Pinzon, before going on their journey, had already seen a map of the Americas in the Pope's library. So how do you discover a place for which you already have a map? The same question could be asked of Magellan. The strait that connects the Atlantic to the Pacific bears the great Portuguese explorer's name. When Magellan reached that strait in 1520, he had run out of food and his sailors were reduced to eating rats. Magellan squashed the mutiny by claiming he was not at all lost. A member of the crew wrote, "We all believed that the strait was a cul-de-sac, but the captain knew that he had to navigate through a very well-concealed strait, the mythical Strait of Anian. Having seen it in a chart preserved in the treasury of the King of Portugal and made by Martin of Bohemia, a man of great parts." So Magellan sees this Strait of Anian on a chart preserved in this treasury of the King of Portugal. Who is the King of Portugal? We're talking about the mythical Strait of Anian, as you can see here. Quivira, Cibala, cities of gold, Sipangu, Zaitan, keep that in your mind. The mythical Strait of Anian, Terra Incognita. We got the Strait of Anian, the mythical Strait of Anian, what we would know to be America, right? Quivira, Cibala, so-called cities of gold, they say. We got Zaitan, Almaro, Sinzu, Kinsai. What's really going on here? What's the connection between these maps and the so-called Portuguese? Oriental adventures were relayed via chroniclers, including the Polos. William of Rubruck, who spoke of the swarthy Tangus, swarthy meaning of dark skin or complexion, we're talking copper-colored Khans, found here. Venice was intimately acquainted with China, they say. Her merchants, the Polos in particular, made fortunes trading exotic Chinese silks and drapi tartarishi. Small wonder, given their centuries of trade with China, the Venetians were the first Europeans to obtain world maps from their trading partner. Today, you can see on the wall of the Doge's palace a world map published prior to 1428 that includes North America. Let that sink in. Today, as in today, you can see on the wall of the Doge's palace a world map published prior to 1428 that includes North America. As the roundels on the wall testify, this map was created from evidence brought back from China by Marco Polo and Niccolo de Conti. The map in Doge's palace. So, we're looking at a map in a palace, right? In Venetia. So imagine this. You walk into a room and the walls are a map. Not just any map, an inverted map, meaning upside down, from what we know, upside down, with what the right here being what they would call so-called China, and what we would see here to be so-called America. In the inscription you see California. But again, America is to the west, so-called China, Europe to the east, according to the orientation of this map. So then we're going to get into this inscription here, what's going on with that. The inscription relating to De Conti says, I'm going to try this, I think it's Latin or Italian. Orientalis Indias hoc tabula expressus per egretionibus et scriptis illustrant in narratis mercantorium ad Huvier Saecolo Nicolau de comitibus edito itinerario Lusitane postmodum verso novum Lusum nautis alitoro. Meaning, Oriental India as drawn in this way is clearly a result of the foreign travels and illustrated writings, not least the narratives, of the merchant of the 15th century, Niccolo da Conti. Publication of this itinerary sheds new light on the travels of mariners. This map was probably completed before 1428 and the inauguration of Doge's palace, but destroyed by fire in 1486. The original maps, of which a copy was given to Dom Pedro, were hung on the walls. So the original map was destroyed in a fire. The so-called original maps are but a copy of which was given to Dom Pedro, which were then hung on the walls. So Dom Pedro got the drop. According to Lorenzetti, the map was repainted by Ramusio in 1540 after the fire. The same Ramusio who had said that Fra Mauro's world map was copied from one in the Camolodunzian monastery on the current island of the Dead in the lagoon. The map room might as well be described as the heart of the Venetian Empire. So these maps are very important to the Venetians. The two long walls of the room are covered with 11 painted maps of the world. Neither of these maps shows latitude or longitude. They cover the same area as maps on the opposite wall, showing the rest of the world. The Venetian Empire is thus shown far larger than it was. Check it out. Another map. Inverted, meaning upside down. Although this time we have what we would know to be America to the east, or we would know to be Africa, Europe, to the west, I guess, or to the left. Either way, the map is upside down, and it begs the question, what's really going on here? As you can see, we got the Gulf of Mexico here, down to South America. The opposite wall is divided by the door into the Sala del Filosofy. To the left of the door is a map of Central Asia from Crete to Tibet. To the right is a map of the world from Arabia across the Pacific to California. India and the Indies, China, Japan, the Pacific, and North America, from Alaska to California, are depicted with general accuracy. The whole world is there, save for southern Australia. So the map in Doge's palace pretty much goes everywhere with the exception of what we would know to be Australia. Of greatest interest is the world map showing the Pacific and North America. So again, the Venetians in their maps, of greatest interest in these maps is the world map showing the Pacific and North America. These are the world maps that Dom Pedro was given during his state visit to Venice between the 5th and 22nd of April 1428. So somehow Dom Pedro gets the maps in March of 1428. Mario Dandola, the Venetian ambassador to the King of Hungary, reported that the Infante Don Pedro had left for Venice. The Doge and the council decided to receive the Portuguese prince and his companions in regal fashion. The Doge received Dom Pedro on board the Bucentauro. Of the gifts bestowed upon Dom Pedro during his visit to Venice, Professor Rogers cites several accounts. So how did Dom Pedro get the drop? In the year 1428, it is written that Dom Peter, aka Dom Pedro, the king of Portugal's eldest son, was a great traveler, from thence into the Holy Land and to other places, from whence he brought a map of the world, which had all the parts of the world and earth described. The Strait of Magellan was called in it the Dragon's Tail. We're talking dragon tails. Let's go. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. Dom Pedro's got the map. The Strait of Magellan was called in it the Dragon's Tail. It was told me by Francis de Souza Tavares that in the year 1528, Dom Fernando, the king's son and heir, did show him a map which was found in the study of the Alcabaza, which had been made 120 years before, which map did set forth all the navigation of the East Indies, whereby it appeareth that in ancient times there was as much or more discovered than now there is. So let that sink in. Whereby it appeareth that in ancient times there was as much or more discovered than now there is. Another one. This one doesn't appear to be upside down, but it still give you some orientation to our right here, or what we would know to be to the east would be Guinea or Africa, Portugal, España, and then to the left we got the copper colored cons here holding it down, and what we would know to be America. Again, what are the Spanish and Portuguese and Venetians looking for in America? What's the connection? What's really going on here? In 1502 in Lisbon, the famous German printer Valentin Fernandez published a beautiful volume of the Indies of the East. He included Portuguese translations of the Indies based on information gathered in Florence from Nicola da Conti and delegates to the council. In the second part of his lengthy introduction to Marco Polo, Valentin Fernandez makes the following statement, pregnant with meaning from several points of view. And I quote, "Concerning this matter I heard that the Venetians had hidden the present book for many years." And I quote, "Concerning this matter I heard that the Venetians had hidden the present book for many years in their treasure house. And at the time that the Infante Don Pedro of glorious memory, your uncle arrived in Venice, offered him as a worthy gift the said book about Marco Polo that he might be guided by it, since he was desirous of seeing and traveling through the world. They say this book is in the Torre de Tombo." So again, the Venetians, the Portuguese, and the Spanish have these maps, these books. What are they really looking for? With the Cape rounded, the all-water route to India lay revealed. Valentin Fernandez could think of no greater service to his monarch than the publication in Portuguese translation, the three best available descriptions of the world over which King Manuel now assumed dominion. One was that of Marco Polo, another was the description of the Indies. So, this information is of high importance. It's classified. We're talking about the Rouge map. Again, what we would know to be Africa, Libya, España, Portugal, Europe here to our right, and what we would know to be North America, Newfoundland to our left. We got Manji, Tangu, Catayo. The Europeans who landed in America in the late 15th century thought they were in Asia. Again, why? How? Where's the confusion? Let me know. Leave a note in the comments. So to our right is what we would know Europe, Africa. To our left, what we would know as America, the eastern coast of America. But we got Manji and Tangu. What's really going on here? That this term was used by the Indians, the cartographer has a warning for fishermen. The demons that haunt the shores of this region prevent vessels from landing. West of the Newfoundland coast are the Asian landmasses of Gog, and Magog, described by Marco Polo. Again, what we would know to be the eastern coast of America, we got Manji, Tangu, Gog, and Magog, according to Marco Polo, the etymological origins of which are biblical. Can't make this up. Are biblical. Gog and Magog, described by Marco Polo. It seems to me beyond argument that the world map on display today in the Doge's palace is, as the Venetians claim, based on information that reached Venice from Marco Polo and Niccolo de Conti, and that this was the same world map taken to Portugal by Dom Pedro in 1428. Dom Pedro's got the drop. Consequently, both the Venetians and the Portuguese knew the contours of the whole world before the Portuguese voyages of exploration even started. So they already had it mapped out before they even got on a boat. They knew where to go, what to look for, because they had these maps and these secret books. As noted in 1419, Pisanello had painted murals in the Doge's palace. Pisanello came from Verona, which by then had joined the Pax Venetica. Her grandees were elected to the Great Council of Venice. In about 1436, Pisanello painted another fresco in the Church of St. Anastasia at Verona. In the left-hand section is a group of horsemen. The upright lines on this chart show the distance from east to west, whereas the cross lines show the distance from north to south. The chart also indicates various places in India, which may be reached if one meets with some storm or headwind or any other misfortune. That you may know as much about these places as possible, you should know that the only people living on any of these islands are merchants who trade there. That country has many inhabitants, provinces, kingdoms, and innumerable cities, all of which are ruled by a prince known as the Grand Khan, which in our language means the King of Kings, the Khan of Khans. Innumerable cities and kingdoms which are all ruled by a prince known as the Khan, the Wang, Khan, Unk, Khan, the Prester, John, chief of the Black Catayans. The Grand Khan mainly resides in the province of Catay, saying that years ago they sent ambassadors to the Pope, they say, but these ambassadors, the Polos, met with difficulties on the way and had to turn back without reaching Rome. So they wasn't feeling it, they had to turn back. Who is the Grand Khan? The Prester John, the chief of the Black Catayans. Again, another map. Back to that Orontius finds map. Again, we got Magellan popping up, Hispania, Tara, Florida, so we know this is the Gulf of Mexico. Labeled as Asia, Catay, or the province of Manji. Orontius finds map 1531. What's really going on? We're talking the Khan of Khans. His forefathers greatly desired to make contact with the Christian world, they say, and they sent ambassadors to the Pope, asking him to send them many learned men who could instruct them in our faith, they say. Met with difficulties on the way, they had to turn back. There came an ambassador to him who told him of their great feelings of friendship to all the Christians, and I had a long conversation with the ambassador about many things, they say. About the great number of cities on their banks, so great a number that along one river there were 200 cities with very long, wide bridges of marble that were adorned with many pillars. This country is richer than any other yet discovered. This country is richer than any other yet discovered. Not only could it provide great profit and many valuable things, but also possesses gold and silver and precious stones and all kinds of spice in large quantities. From the city of Lisbon to the west, The chart shows 26 sections of 250 miles, altogether nearly 1/3 of the Earth's circumference, before reaching the very large and magnificent city of Kansai, which name means heavenly city. We're talking the heavenly empire, Karkatai, Prester John, and the Black Khatan. Amazing things have been related about its vast buildings, its artistic treasures, and its revenues. It lies in the province of Manji, near the province of Katai, where the king chiefly resides. It lies, the heavenly city, in the province of Manji, near the province of Katai, where the Khan chiefly resides, and from the island of Antilia, which you call the island of seven cities, and its temples and palaces. That island, Sapangu, is very rich in gold, pearls, and precious stones, and its temples and palaces are covered in gold. We're talking 7 cities of gold. But since the route to this place is not yet known, all these things remain hidden and secret. Orontius Fine's map. We got another one from Orontius Fine. Again, what we would know to be America, Gulf of Mexico. We got Catayo, Tangu, the province of Manji, and Katai, where the heavenly city resides. Let's go. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. I could still tell of many other things, but as I have already told you of them in person, and as you are a man of good judgment, I will dilate no further on this subject. I try to answer your questions as well as the lack of time in my work have permitted me, but I am always prepared to serve His Highness and answer his questions at greater length, should he so wish. Written in Florence on the 25th of June, 1474. So again, we haven't even got to the good part. 1492 is going down. In these 2 letters, Toscanelli tells Canon Martins and Christopher Columbus that the earth is a sphere and that China can be reached by sailing west from Spain. So Toscanelli comes out of nowhere, hit Canon Martins and Christopher Columbus on the head with the drop. He's like, hey, the earth is a sphere. You can get here this way. Follow me. I know where to go. Yet in 1474, when Toscanelli wrote these letters, Europeans had not yet reached southern Africa, and it was another 18 years before Columbus set sail for the Americas. So how did Toscanelli know China could be reached not only via east around Africa, but via the west? How did Toscanelli know? Toscanelli's claims to Columbus about the map or globe seem extraordinary. He asserts that the chart shows that the distance sailing westward from Lisbon to Kansai in China is only 1/3 of the Earth's circumference, and that from Antilia to the very famous island Sapangu is a distance of 2,500 miles. He implies in his letter to Columbus that the information is on a round sphere and that the islands of spices can be reached by sailing westward. So Toscanelli comes out of nowhere with this like, hey, you can get here, you just gotta go this way. And they're like, what is that? That doesn't even make sense. Toscanelli fires back. Toscanelli's claim that it is only 2,500 miles from Japan to Antilia in the Caribbean seems absurd. It doesn't make sense. Why doesn't it make sense? How did Columbus going to Asia so-called end up in America? What's really going on? If Toscanelli's account is true, it must have been a very distinctive map. I have searched for this map for 12 years, starting with an investigation into the maps of Toscanelli's friend, Regiomontanus. As described in later chapters, Regiomontanus worked closely with Toscanelli. So Toscanelli got it from Regiomontanus. Toscanelli got a drop to Columbus, saying that Regiomontanus and Gustavo Uzielli believed that a map Toscanelli sent to Columbus was drawn up with help from Regiomontanus. Toscanelli was famous for his 1474 letters to Columbus and Canon Martins, in which he advised them about reaching the Indies by crossing the world ocean. It is possible that there was a prototype of this map in one of Bessarion's nautical charts, which contained islands similar to those found by Columbus. Now Bessarion, backer of Regiomontanus, so Regiomontanus got the drop, got Toscanelli got the drop, then Canon Martins and Columbus get the drop, Marco Polo's got the drop, Uzieli's got the drop, who described Toscanelli's work, took the position that the map had been designed by Regiomontanus with Toscanelli's assistance. Such a collaborative work is not impossible, for the two men were in correspondence. Atlantic Ocean, Toscanelli, 1474. So again, we got orientation. The underlay, the blue part of what we know to be as North America with the gray outline, and the blue is like what we know a map today. Over the top is Toscanelli's 1474 map. And they're saying they don't understand how Lisbon is that close to Sapangu and Manji and Katai, Zaitan and Kinsai. But basically, again, Columbus sailed west or east depending on how the map was facing, and he ran into what he thought was China but ended up to be so-called United States. But on these maps, the United States is named after these so-called Chinese provinces. So what's the deal here? In 1472, he stated his intention to publish maps, to make a description of the entire habitable world, commonly called a mappa mundi. So Regiomontanus wanted to just go on a world tour and just start making maps. For the next 3 years, Regiomontanus was preoccupied with ephemeris tables and calendars. In 1475, the Pope summoned him to Rome, where Regiomontanus died, probably of the plague. Dang, they took out Regiomontanus. He never got around to publishing his world map. Zenner, in his lengthy book on Regiomontanus, does not mention publication of a world map. So the mythical Strait of Anian, leading from the Atlantic to the Pacific, which we now call the Strait of Magellan. The globes also showed the Pacific and China. The authenticity of Schooner's globes of 1515, 1520, and 23 has never been challenged. I studied Schooner's 1515 globe with great interest. It was virtually identical to the copy of a globe shown on Waldseemüller's 1507 world map. So copies on copies on copies. Somehow Dom Pedro got the last one left. We're just talking Schooner's globes. The mythical Strait of Anian. What we would know to be the United States, the Gulf of Mexico, Strait of Anian. Again, where's the rest of America? Is it underwater? Where's the connection here? Let me know what you think. Has it been yet to be discovered? Who knows, man? Let me know what you think. We got Waldseemüller's map of 1507, same thing. Get some orientation here. Talking about the mythical Strait of Anian. In sum, Schooner's 15, 15, and 20 globes accord completely with Toscanelli's description sent to the King of Portugal. So again, you got the Venetians, Toscanelli, Waldseemüller, who else you got? Schooner, Columbus, Marco Polo. It's a select group of guys who all have this information in these maps. Toscanelli's description sent to the King of Portugal and to Christopher Columbus. Toscanelli and Schooner must have been copying from the same globe, a globe that had existed before 1474. It appears Toscanelli was telling the truth. In the next 2 chapters, we discover how Schooner got the globe that he copied. Again, copies on copies on copies. But Dom Pedro got the last one left. The King of Portugal, man. What's the connection between the Venetians, the Portuguese, and the Spanish. So first, we have to figure out how he got them. First, we're gonna say the king of Portugal. Second, Columbus. Third, the Pope. Fourth, Regiomontanus, R.I.P., who appears to have assisted Tuscanelli. Let us consider the king of Portugal, Dom Pedro. In my book 1421, I gave a brief description of Magellan squashing a mutiny by claiming to have seen a map in the king of Portugal's library. Magellan's expedition was well provisioned and fitted out, even though he was under the auspices of Spain when he sailed from Sanlúcar de Barrameda on the estuary of the Guadalquivir. A mutiny broke out. We all believed that the mythical Strait of Anian was a cul-de-sac, but the captain knew that he had to navigate through a very well-concealed strait, having seen it in a chart preserved in the treasury of the King of Portugal. So again, Dom Pedro and them got the drop, and made by Martin of Bohemia, a man of great parts. It seems to me that it has been destroyed or lost because the chart has never been found. Some have assumed that Magellan was bluffing, pretending he knew where he was as to quell the mutiny. However, there are 4 pieces of convincing corroborative evidence that Magellan did have a chart that showed not only the mythical Strait of Anian, but also the way across the Pacific. Magellan showed the king of Limasawa in the Philippines a map that, Magellan said, showed how he had reached the Philippines across the Pacific. The second is the account of the celebrated Portuguese historian Antonio Galvão, who wrote that the king of Portugal had a map showing the Strait of Magellan, the mythical Strait of Anian, Dom Pedro and them. In the year 1428, it is written that Dom Pedro, the king of Portugal's eldest son, was a great traveler, taking Rome and Venice in his way, from whence he brought a map of the world, which he had all the parts of the world and earth described. The mythical Strait of Anian was called in it the Dragon's Tail. We're talking dragon tails. Let's get it. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. Who is Dom Pedro, and why does he have the last map? Third, the strait was mentioned during the examination of Magellan by King Charles V, aka Carlos Quinto. No matter where you look, Carlos Quinto, aka Charles V, always shows up. And King Charles V's ministers, before Magellan set sail, basically he'd get a cross-examination, asking him these questions or whatever. Magellan stressed it was a secret strait, a strait that was known to nobody until now. And then, how is it secret if you know about it? A strait that was known to nobody until now. So again, there's a select group of guys that got the drop, that got access to these maps. Finally, the capitulacion, the contract between the King of Spain and Magellan, was to go in search of the strait. There was a contract between Carlos Quinto and Magellan to go. Carlos Quinto said, make it happen. Magellan said, say less. Let's get it. However, Waldseemüller said in his Cosmographiae Introductio that the Americas have been found to be surrounded on all sides by sea. So Waldseemüller must have known that there was a way from the Atlantic to the Pacific. The one European map published before Magellan set sail that does show a strait leading from the Atlantic to the Pacific is Johannes Schoener's 1515 globe. This was published before Magellan's examination by Charles V's ministers and before the contract between Magellan and the King of Spain. It is thus consistent with all the evidence. So Schoener's globe, Waldseemüller's map, Tuscanelli, Magellan, Carlos Quinto, Dom Pedro, Christopher Columbus, Marco Polo, Niccolo de Conti. What's going on here, man? It is thus consistent with all the evidence. This was published before Magellan's examination by Carlos Quinto's minister and before the contract between Magellan and the King of Spain. So we ask, how does the one European map published before Magellan set sail show a strait leading from the Atlantic to the Pacific? If Magellan so-called found the strait, you let me know. Leave a note in the comments. It is thus consistent with all evidence. Episode number 42, For a Chosen Few. Allow